Guys, people know what they're doing, okay? I don't even know why I'm recording this or why I'm feeling the need to record this. If you are someone who's like me, maybe like very optimistic, you see the best in people, naive to some degree, you might think that everybody's like operating and navigating through the world from the same perspective as you, which is probably optimistic, honest, kind, compassionate. And that's not to say I have no flaws or that I'm just like this nice, innocent human that's never made any mistakes. That's not what I'm saying. But rather that there's people that like try to navigate the world gently and make it better, and then people who are just not concerned about that. Same thing as like dark and light, good and bad, evil and I guess holy. The reason I like have this on my mind right now is because I was talking to my mom. I don't want to put her business out there, but she's in a situation where, like many women, you date someone or you're just romantically involved with someone who hurts you and takes advantage of you, and most of the time women stay in these situations. There's a million different why'd you stay? Why don't you just leave? Why didn't you just call the cops? Why didn't you do all this stuff? And women that have been in that situation and have anyone that has critical thinking skills would be like, oh, because it's not that easy, because it's not that simple. It doesn't end there. There's usually a whole bunch of nuance and more to the story that makes something that seems like such a simple solution a lot more complicated for somebody to actually be pushed to that point. And the advice I was trying to give her today was that people just, they're not stupid. People know what they're doing. Everyone calculates their risks and decides, okay, what can I lose from this versus what can I gain from this, even if it hurts somebody else or takes advantage of them or puts them in a bad situation or whatever. And they make that choice. Everyone makes their choices, right? And if you're especially someone who's very emotional, the way that you're going to make decisions in life is likely going to be a little bit more irresponsible. Both if you're making emotional decisions from a place of like, I want to be in love, I want to be happy, if it's coming from a wounded spot or like a place in you, within you, that has unresolved emotions, especially around pain. You know, we always see the archetypes of like very common women. We've either been friends with them, seen them in a movie where it's just like the hopeless romantic woman who desperately wants to be in love but gets hurt over and over and over again. More often than not, it's not that the woman is just relentlessly unlucky and is most likely subconsciously choosing partners that will hurt her over and over again, especially if her pursuit of being in a relationship is coming from a place of fear of being alone or fear of being single, feeling as if they need to be in love to be complete. And the thing that's dangerous about this is, especially just the way that we're raised from media, movies, and stuff like that, we have this scope, this vision that we are a damsel in distress and we need to find our Prince Charming that's going to save us from our situations and save us from ourselves, which is like the biggest lie and the most dangerous ideology to believe. And it's especially horrifying when it surpasses like age 15 and has now followed you into your 20s, into your 30s, into your 40s, into your 50s. Unfortunately, it's like an epidemic of the female brain that doesn't really go away unless you consciously unlearn those things and decenter men and kind of deconstruct why you want the things that you think you want in life and whether you actually want those things or if you just think you want those things because somebody has been telling you to want those things for your entire life, basically, up until this point. The reason that puts you in a bad, vulnerable position is because I'm not gonna say men, like, you guys know how I feel about men, like, obviously I'm talking about men, but it does bleed into like any person, any race, any gender, any background, whatever. There are people who sniff out victims and sniff out people's like vulnerabilities and weak spots that they can take advantage of. And then there's people who walk around the world as a martyr, as a victim, wearing victimhood on their sleeve, feeling bad for themselves, feeling as if somebody or something else needs to save them, and those two people will always find each other. It's dangerous because if you're not so consciously aware of your emotions and how your emotions play a major role in your decision making, you're going to end up playing somebody else's game without even realizing it, without even like consciously consenting to it. You're going to become a pawn and a video game player in somebody else's complicated, sadistic narrative that they're living in their minds. This just also goes into like the power of the mind, your psychology, being self-aware, emotional awareness, emotional discipline. And this isn't to say either, I think a lot of people confuse all of those things with like not having feelings or like being logical. It's not that. It's that your emotions are fleeting, they're temporary. It's like a cloud going by. They're not rooted in fact. They're rooted in perspective and the stories that you tell yourself. And if you're telling yourself stories over and over and over again, imagine doing that for your whole life. Everybody has like 2 or 3 cemented stories in their brain because it's something that they adopted early on, whether from themselves or like a conclusion that they've accepted for themselves, and then had that reiterated to them and confirmed to them so many times that it becomes like a spell that they cast upon themselves that cannot be broken until you stop telling yourself that story and start telling yourself a new story. And I find that with my mom, what happens is like we have these conversations and she says, I know that. Like, I know that you're right. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not an idiot. I know these things. I don't know why I do them despite knowing that. And I tried to explain to her, like, it's because on some level you're saying I know that. You're saying I know this on paper to be true across the board for everybody, that this plus this equals this. But in some way or on some level, you don't believe that it can be different for you. You believe that this is your identity, this is the type of person you are, so that means these are the type of experiences you can have, and that's the best of it, and you can't get anything better than that. And that boils into self-concept too. Like, everything that you believe, every story that you tell yourself, every perspective that you have is a reflection of you and the way that you view yourself. I was trying to explain this the other day to a friend that was talking about wanting to manifest money. And the biggest mistake people make with manifesting money is they're like thinking they're manifesting this thing that's going to save them, that's going to fix them. Once they have this, then they'll be happy, then they'll feel safe, then they'll feel secure, then they'll try harder, then they'll take themselves seriously, then they'll ask for more out of life. They're thinking this like object, this tangible piece of paper, money, is going to be the medium that brings in all of these good things that start happening to you, when the whole issue at hand is that you don't believe you're someone that's worthy of that. When you're trying to manifest money, you're not trying to manifest money. Money is just like the symptom. It's the conclusion of believing you deserve more. When trying to manifest money, you need to just work on your beliefs around you, who you are, how life works for you, accessibility, what you get and what you don't get in life. And most of the time, people that have money issues, it's like not that they don't understand finances. We know like the typical advice people get when they're like, I'm struggling with finances, is like, oh, just budget better. And people are like, poor people are like, with what money? What are we budgeting? Like, we are budgeting. We can't save. We can't do X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, again, when you have your narrative and your storytelling confirmed to you so many times, it's solidified into the truth for you. So if you're someone that's, for example, like with me, grown up financially struggling, money's hard to get, it makes people bad, it makes people stressed out, it makes people separate, it causes divorces, it causes family issues, it's the complete ruin of your life. Having that reflected to you so many times and then throwing yourself into society and getting made fun of for those things, and starting to feel bad about yourself and self-conscious and like you're less than, and then getting into a relationship where maybe you date someone that has money and maybe you have more money in your life, but you're not happy because this person holds it over your head and they control you with it. Like, money was never the issue. It was the beliefs that you have about yourself. And this isn't to say either that you're born into this world, and if you're born poor, you need to just like be more confident. Like, that's not what I'm saying. There's obviously like systematic oppression and things that do trip up people that have a weaker mind, and I don't like saying that, and I know people don't like hearing it because it invites in guilt or shame around having to confront like your participation within your storyline, where you need to be held accountable. For example, like women that do get into abusive relationships over and over and over again, it's not to say it's your fault that you're getting abused, or like that the abuser like didn't do anything wrong, but at some point, if we've tried to learn a lesson or been reflected that we need to learn a lesson X, Y, and Z amount of times, and now you're on your 4th, 5th relationship that's a complete like sequel, like another script for script, line for line duplicate of being abused like you were in your past relationships, there needs to be a moment where you stand in that and go, okay, how am I playing into this? How am I participating in this? What led me here? What decisions can I make differently to not repeat this process? And what does this situation reflect about how I view myself and how I feel about myself? Again, these are all very nuanced conversations, so I want to be clear, I'm not saying if you have cancer or if you had gone through an incredible hardship in your life that you brought that upon yourself. But most of the time, those things that do happen in our foundational years, in our like early childhood upbringing, in our adolescence, especially the bad things, they communicate something to us, and especially if it causes a lot of fear, a lot of emotion's the big thing in this, that's what keeps the story running. So something really bad might have happened to you when you were 7. No questions asked, no doubt about it. You went through something that was not okay and not fair to you. The biggest obstacle with this is that people really struggle to process that pain without completely identifying it and internalizing it as part of them, part of who they are, rather than something that they went through at one point in their life. And by believing that's part of who you are, you navigate the world as someone who is that thing. Does that make sense? You wear it on your sleeve. And the other challenging thing about this is that if you ever try to escape that identity for yourself and want more for yourself, and you do the work and you are like, oh, I can be more than just this thing or just this circumstance or just this relationship or just this trauma, the next challenge is that other people will try to slap you on the wrist and smack you back into place because they don't want you breaking your story, because that would prove that you can change your story, and it would make everybody else who refuses to change their story look bad because they're choosing not to change theirs. Silly example, but I saw Cardi B like in a little Twitter feud with someone the other day where they were basically calling her ghetto, calling her a stripper, like whatever, which she has been. Cardi B has been a stripper before. This this is especially bad when it comes to like misogynistic things with women and stuff especially. But Cardi B is not just a stripper anymore. The woman is like swimming in millions of dollars. Have you seen the like birthday events and Christmas decorations, things that she provides for her kids, and how she's actually like participated in politics and tried to bring awareness to important things for the working class people despite the fact that she is not in that tax bracket anymore? That is someone who broke beyond their limitations, their systematic oppression, the things that worked against them, and is clearly not in those circumstances anymore. Yet people are like, oh, you are just a stripper. You're just a bad influence. She's an entertainer. And again, there's more nuance to that across the board for everybody, not just with her. But that's someone who believed in themselves enough to not stop at stripping, to not stop at trading her body or thinking she's limited to what she can offer physically, or believing she can only hit this ceiling of money, and broke how many parameters for herself? How many ceilings? Probably one after another, after another, after another. And this is a good example of like, you don't have to come from nothing either to change. Like, I don't want to say you have an advantage if you're born, because listen, this is the thing. Challenges, obstacles, and limitations are subjective for people. How do I word this? How do I verbalize this? Sorry, my hair is white. I have dry shampoo in my hair. I grew up without money, and in my head, I had a lot of jealousy towards my friends that clearly, came from money. They were really financially secure. Maybe they had family members that were like really successful business owners or investors. Maybe their family member had like a job of something they kind of sort of wanted to do. And in my head, I always looked at this as like, why are they not taking advantage of the fact that they have help, that they have money, that they have the resources to do the things that they want, that I want, and they're not taking advantage of their step up? And it's because in some cases, people that are very privileged, their privilege actually hinders them. And I know that that can be confusing and maybe even frustrating for people that see that lifestyle and want it. But in many ways, it can stunt the growth of somebody who grew up very fortunate, because nothing is a challenge and everything is given to them. There's almost no incentive to want something for yourself. And a lot of the ambition that maybe people that grow up less fortunate have kind of falls flat for them, because there's the ability to not have to work for something and just have it given to you. So like, it is different for everybody across the board. And this is one of those things that's so funny, because it's just like, at the end of the day, we are all so much more similar than we think we are. It might not look the same on the outside, it might not be similar circumstantially, but like, most of us are struggling with the same blockages, with the same insecurities, with the same pain, with the same desires that we have in life. And the reason that I kind of started this with saying that people know what they're doing is that you need to be so laser focused and have such strong tunnel vision on what you want in life, who you want to be, where you're going. Because the hard part, that first block, that first step, is breaking your own brain, is unlearning things and changing your self-concept. The next step is the fact that once you do that, it poses a threat to people that do not want you moving positions, do not want you to upgrade yourself, do not want you to get out of that stuck, tumultuous, limited spot in your life. Because what that does is mess up their game. You're a pawn that's now making a move that you were not supposed to do. It was not in their plan. So when I say people know what they're doing, I think that there's like a phase that people go through when they start to make those internal changes and they're seeing it manifest into physical reality. They're seeing it materialize. They're seeing now positive evidence that things can go better for them. Things can improve. They can be happier. They can change. And you will have people and circumstances and things on your path that test that belief. And if you fall for that test, like immediately, you're going to be snapped back into, okay, I need to revisit the self-concept. I need to revisit the beliefs I have. I need to revisit the storylines that I'm telling myself. And it's not linear either. So you don't need to feel bad about yourself if you do work on self-concept, and then you get tested with something and you fall for it. Oh, okay, you're knocked back down to step one. You can always come back up, right? For some people, they struggle with needing to hit rock bottom or only functioning in extremes. I've had that pattern in my life where I feel like I never made improvements unless I was at that very rock bottom, and I've learned how to not let myself get to that point anymore and to stay disciplined. But you need to like envision this conversation you're having with God or the universe, what you're communicating. If you want better for yourself, if you want a better relationship, but time and time again you keep falling for this person, saying, oh, just one more month, I'll break up with them in the summer. Well, I'm just going to use them for this because they're helping me with this, but then I'm going to stop talking to them. You're communicating outwardly that you think you need to stay in the situation to get to the next step, or that you need something to hold you over before you find someone better. Newsflash, you're not going to get someone better until you make it very clear that that's not a part of your story anymore. Like, there's so many different ways that it can manifest, but unfortunately, there are people that have a lot of darkness in them that know that it can benefit them to operate and control people out of fear, out of power and control dynamics, out of insecurities, out of limited beliefs, because they see your weakness. And you need to make sure that the strength you see within yourself supersedes and overpowers the weakness that they assume you have. Because if their assumption continues to be right, and you show them that in your choices and in your decision making, they have full control over you. They are puppeteering you, and you may not realize that, like, you're now making decisions and thinking thoughts and having beliefs that you adopted from someone that is like your op and not on your side at all. But they'll be using language that makes it sound like they are on your side. They're the only one on your side. They're the one that only wants the best for you. Everybody else doesn't want the best for you. And it's a battlefield out there, and that's not to like scare people. That's not to, evoke paranoia. But people are so afraid of being alone and thinking for themselves and like having a personal journey, or even sitting alone with their thoughts. And I can't tell you why, because I don't feel like I fully struggle with that. I feel like I feel very alone in this world, and I feel alone in my mind. And I feel like my personal journey of that, like part of my responsibility of experiencing that, is to share these things. But the ceiling that people put on themselves is incredibly unfortunate, because there's so much on the other side that people can't even allow themselves to see, because it poses that threat and shows to you, reveals to you, you can have these things that you want, but at the expense of letting go of all of this murky, scary, gross, dark, evil energy that's been pulling you into this dark, insecure, fearful place. It's a trade-off. It's a transaction. You have to, in order to like access your new life, it has to be the death of your old life. In order to access your new self, you need to let the old self come full circle and let go of it. And all of that just boils down to identity. The things that you do or don't want in your life, the things that are happening that are good and that are bad, all of those things have to do with the way that you view yourself and your identity. It's not about the way the world works. It's not about so-and-so's fault, blaming other people. You need to get in touch with the relationship you have with yourself and with your faith, because people say they're faithful all day. They'll say, I believe in God, I'm religious, I believe things work out, everything happens for a reason, but all their decisions say otherwise. All their decisions are completely coming from a place of fear and not faith. So I guess just be mindful of the fact that people can sense when you are starting to feel good about yourself and starting to believe in yourself and starting to be faithful, And people will try to threaten you with all of those fears and insecurities to knock you back into a place of fear and not faith. And people are not stupid. They know what they're doing, and they know why they're doing it, but they make it look like an illusion to you so that you trust them in aiding in your downfall. And it's not worth it. And I use this video to explain that, so that you don't get dragged to rock bottom where you have to learn that the hard way. And I know that most of the time with lessons in life, I know this applies to me as well, you can give someone all the advice in the world, and like, it's just people need to learn their own lessons on their own time. But I figured I would just share these thoughts. I feel like I didn't even fully get to the point of what I was trying to say. But people will play with you, and the world and people in it and things in it and agendas in it will try to brainwash you. At some point in life, everybody gets brainwashed, and you want to make sure that you are the one brainwashing yourself before you surrender and give your brain up and your thoughts and your beliefs and your storylines to the wrong person who's going to control that in the worst way possible and lead you to believe your worth and, you know, you're less capable than far more than you actually are. I was eating cookies that my mom brought me with powdered sugar on them, so that's what's on my shirt, and my hair is literally white. But okay, love you guys.